Stephen A., are you okay with that punishment?
I am. I thought it was necessary. I called for a 2-game suspension yesterday. It was necessary. You have to send a message, and I think that that's important. Ultimately, what happened yesterday, and I'm glad that Louis Riddick is here because I appreciate what you had to say yesterday on this subject, and I know I'm going to appreciate what Max has to say. What the NFL basically did yesterday with the 2-game suspension was go about the business of reminding those players and the rest of the players in the NFL what all of us should know in regards to anyone who employs us. You are never bigger than the brand. You are never bigger than the shield. I don't care how popular Stephen A. is, I'm not bigger than ESPN. I don't care how popular Tom Brady is, he is not bigger than NFL. I don't care how great LeBron is, he's not bigger than the NBA. The brand matters. And I think along the way, guys have lost their way. And as a result of it, somebody needs to call them on it. I have been on the record in complete support of Colin Kaepernick, outside of him not voting. I'm not talking about that, just protesting. His right to protest. I absolutely support that. The players taking the knee. It was a protest for civil rights. It was not a protest against the flag. We know all of that. But the reason why I correlate those protests with the suspensions that have been handed down, how can you, and I know they didn't do it on purpose, so I'm not trying to knock Michael Crabtree or Aqib Talib. I'm not doing that. But I'm just using them as examples because they're the ones that have been suspended. How are you, as a black athlete, as a black man, not cognizant of the fact that you're out there fighting, looking like you can't control yourself, and at the same time that protests have been taking place, and you're asking folks to view you in a certain way to the point where they have turned against you? It's affected ratings, it's affected revenue, and beyond. Again, they may be wrong. They may not know you from a can of paint. They are totally wrong in terms of how they think about a lot of these athletes who are good men, family men, loving individuals, God-fearing individuals who do the right things by and large. But knowing that that vitriol is aimed in your direction from a collective perspective, because it's the NFL players, how dare them disrespect our nation, our flag, et cetera, how do you then go out there acting like hooligans and think that somebody is going to pull that aside and separate it from how they really, really want to think about you? Even though it has nothing to do with it, in those folks' eyes, they're going to look at them and go like this. See these guys? Look at how they're acting. And they got the nerve to protest our nation. That's what's going on in the mind's eye of a lot of people. And if you're a professional athlete who happens to be African American, you have an obligation to think about that with everything you do at this particular moment in time, because rightly or wrongly, you're going to be judged unfairly and harshly because of it.
If you don't have that awareness, Stephen A., then you're just flat out stupid. You're not being aware of what's going on around you. You're not understanding the environment. You're not understanding what you are facing right now. And I totally agree with you 100%, and I tried to say this last night. Look, players, number one, don't respect one another the same way they used to in my generation when I was coming up playing the game in the 90s in the first place. You didn't settle disputes by punk moves like that, trying to rip somebody's chain off and then be bragging about it on the side. You didn't do that kind of stuff. Obviously, the game was a little bit different back then. People settled things between the lines. If Ronnie Lott had a problem with somebody back in the day, I guarantee you he would try and knock his teeth out between the lines, not pull some chain off of his neck. And obviously the environment was much different right now. So players aren't respecting one another. We know that right now they're lacking awareness as to what's really going on in the league. You can't have your cake and eat it too. You can't say, judge me fairly, judge me organically, and then act like that and expect people to not go ahead and continue to advance stereotypes that you know that are sitting out there and they're waiting to just sling them at you. They're waiting, and we know this. I think the league did exactly the right thing. You have to look, the one thing that players understand is this. A lot of times players don't really understand fines because they're making a lot of money now, and they really just kind of like, hey, you know what, go ahead and take a couple of my dollars. Players understand when you take away the stage, and that's the only way to get through is when you don't allow them to play. And this right here is an example, I believe. Look, I don't care what happened. I do care what happened in the A.J. Green and Jalen Ramsey situation. I do care. This, though, the optics were awful. They were awful. A message did need to be sent. And if players don't start getting aware of what is really going on and how people are really viewing them right now, and if you think that that the NFL is always just going to keep going down the tracks, you're sadly mistaken. Just look around you about what's happening. I think there's some owners out there who are trying to get this message across that, hey, look, we understand individually and collectively what some player what we're fighting for, but understand also this business is not fail-proof. It's not. And I think this kind of behavior, it speaks to the lack of awareness that a lot of players have.